Hi guys. Okay. I am hoping that this works. And I know that my mouth isn't lined up with everything, but I'm gonna just talk through this presentation and hopefully that will work. So what we are going to do is we are going to talk about um, our economics and political structure of British America. So a little technology update. I was successfully able to get through my 6th hour without any issues. I got a new camera on my desktop, so I'm hoping that that will be helpful. So today we're going to look at the political structure of early America. So we got through the map of the 13 colonies with the southern colonies and the middle colonies and the New England colonies. So today, after that, we're looking at the differing roles of government in a pre-industrial setting. So the local government was the most important sphere. We talked about how there was power at a face-to-face level at the local government, whereas the crown was giving rules and telling people what to do from a much broader sense. English common law was required, so it was by custom what had always been practiced. At the colonial level, that was a little bit more further removed. There was a lot of policy change, and it wasn't always successful. So tax collection, a lot of colonists didn't feel like they should be paying taxes at this time. So they wanted to kind of rebuff that, and ultimately that will be one of the causes of the revolution. So then we have the imperial level, which was far removed from everyday life. That is going to be your crown. That is going to be, people in high-ranking authority, the king, broad policies for trade and defense, things like that. The Navigation Acts are going to be passed in 1651, 1660, and 1696. And the Navigation Acts put limits and gave broad scope where the carriage of goods to England was concerned, duties or taxes, and it also looked at admiralty courts. A lot of times Navigation Acts were unenforced due to the fact that the imperial government is giving them. So the imperial government would be like our government in Washington, D.C., the federal government. So a lot of times it was unenforced due to distance, things like bribery and smuggling as well. And people were in control from the very top of the socioeconomic hierarchy. So if you were wealthy, you had a place in society and you had control and power. But if you were poor, you didn't have any control and power. So there are going to be 3 types of colonies at this time. The first type is a corporate colony, and you can see that those are in green on our map. And what you see is you don't really see much green on that map. So these are going to be the corporate charters. They're going to offer some an autonomy or oh my God, I can't say it, so I'm not going to. They're going to offer some autonomy. So they're going to kind of have their own wheelings and dealings, if you will. Propriety in green or in blue. So that is going to be land grants from the crown. So this is going to allow people, because those are our 13 colonies, to be able to set up shop, set up land, set up homesteads, things like that. And it's going to be allowed from the very top. And then the royal, that is in pink, and that is the governor who is appointed by the crown, who is going to have control over who does what. So there are 3 broad patterns of government at this time. In the southern colonies, you're going to see counties being developed, and it's going to be ruled at a county level. In the New England area, which is at the top of the colonies, they're going to have towns, and that's how they are going to be governed. And in the middle colonies, you're going to have a blend of counties and towns. And that is how they will be developed and ruled. So a lot of you, I know, were asking about the chart. Okay, so this kind of just shows you who is what. So there were 2 small green charter ones. It was kind of very hard to see when we go back, but they are in there. You can see them there. So charter colonies are going to be Connecticut and Rhode Island. And then all it does there is it tells you what type of government. The governor and the legislature are elected by the colonists. And Great Britain had the right to approve the governor, but the governor could not veto legislation. So within a charter, colonists are going to have a little bit more say. Then you have the proprietary, which is Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And this is going to be where the proprietorship, so kind of high-ranking, elite, wealthy members of society, will select the governor in the upper house, and the colonists will elect the lower house. So the upper house would be like our Senate. So the governor's going to select our Senate, and then the colonies would elect like the House of Representatives. And then we have the royal colonies. And these are going to be Georgia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. And these are going to be directly ruled by Britain. Okay, so they are not going to have any say in their government officials. So this is going to be where the king appoints the governor in the upper house, and the colonists elect the lower house. So the king is going to have the most power in this situation. So when we look at colonial democracy, we put democracy in quotes because there's no real tradition of local democratic government at this point. A lot of people don't know what it is because the crown had been so common in England at this time. So whether officials were elected or appointed, the elites are going to be the ones who are governing. So again, elites are going to be your wealthy individuals, those people who have money, those people who are able to kind of buy their way into society. Property or religious requirements excluded a lot of people. So to be considered elite, you would have to own property or be practicing a specific religion. There were New England town meetings, so you can kind of see here, this is an example of one of those where you have a citizen voicing his concerns in front of a council so they can kind of take into account what people are feeling at this time. And town meetings were based on consensus. So kind of the majority of what people thought, a lot of new laws could be implemented in that area. And it had a really deadening effect on dissent. So meaning that people who wanted to uproar and uprise against the crown, these town meetings made it feel as though colonists had a voice to be heard and that somebody was listening to them and that changes were going to be made. So the colonial government's lower house was elected, and it was modeled on what was known as the House of Commons in Great Britain. What they would do in the lower house was that they would propose, they would debate bills. The upper house was the governor and the council, and they had different modes of constituting their council. So the council would have executive decisions, legislative decisions, and judicial decisions. So it was kind of like our three branches of government all rolled into one. The governors were appointed by the crown, proprietary family, or elected by eligible voters. So someone who came from a noble family, an elite family, or people who were able to vote. Again, your elites would vote those individuals into office. And governors had enormous power. Okay, what they say went, you had to follow their law. They could call and dismiss legislatures. They had veto power. They were commander of the militia, and they also appointed officers. They had the judicial authority to grant pardons or reprieves. So it's kind of like the president in a way of the various colonies. The governors held that much power. They were also allowed to grant land. They regulated trade. They conducted Indian affairs and other foreign affairs as well. So when we look at a colonial economy, it was overwhelmingly agriculture. More than 90% of colonial economies were agriculture-based. They had beliefs about the importance of farming, okay, and their mercantilist policies discouraged colonial manufacturing. So they were not necessarily all about organizing to be able to produce and manufacture at the colonial level. Gradually, colonial farmers break out of that subsistence farming. And remember, subsistence is where you're only farming for yourself and your family to keep yourself afloat. And they start to produce a surplus. And then they're going to start to want to sell that surplus and make a profit from what they are growing. So, as far as colonial trade went, colonies were suppliers and the market. So, not only did they supply the product, but they also had the market for the product. And there was regional specialization that occurred at this time. So, New England, and if you think about where New England is along the coast, they are going to specialize in fish, timber, which is wood, like trees, and furs, animal furs. The middle colonies, they are going to specialize in cattle, grain, and flour. They will also specialize in fur. And the South, their biggest specialization is tobacco. So they're going to be first in that production. Also, naval stores, deerskins, rice, and indigo, which was an ink. So when we look at the triangular trade of colonial trade, it's different than the slave trade. Okay, so when we look at the triangular trade for colonial trade, we look at, from Africa, we have, Roman slaves coming to North America. And then we're going to send tobacco, indigo, flour, and lumber, to Great Britain. Great Britain will send molasses, sugar, manufactured goods, and then you can kind of see there's a bunch of different triangles going on at that time as far as trade was concerned. And a lot of trade occurred at the regional level and on the coast, but there was also a lot of smuggling that occurred and people trying to get out of the Navigation Acts and pay any taxes like that. My goodness, I'm so sorry. So let's do a little quick review here. So the most important sphere of government at this time was what? Colonial, local, imperial. So take a second and think about that. Number 2, how many patterns of political development were there at this time? 1, 2, or 3? Or 4? And if we were in class, you would have cards and you would hold up the cards, and that's how we would review. Number 3, the group of individuals who governed, whether appointed or elected, were who? Elites, the poor, kings, or religious elders? I will give you the answers in a second. The South was tops in this commodity, and a commodity is just a product. Fish, tobacco, fur, or deerskin. Now I'm going to give you the answers from 1 to 4. So the most important sphere of government, local, okay, because local is going to wield the most power. A lot of people think it's the crown, but it's local because governors can impact a lot more. How many patterns of political development were there at this time? 3. Group of individuals who governed, whether appointed or elected. Elites. Money talked at this time and walked. And the South was tops in this commodity. Tobacco. All right, name of the house that was elected by the people. The upper house or the lower house? The colonial economy at this time was mainly fishing, agriculture, hunting and gathering, or cattle. The middle colonies focused on this for trade: fur, tobacco, timber, or rice. The New England had an advantage with this for trading purpose: flour, tobacco, fish, or cattle. So back up to number 5, name of the house that was elected by the people. the lower house. The colonial economy at this time was mainly agriculture. Remember, greater than 90%. The middle colonies focused on fur. And New England had an advantage with this, fish, because they are on the coast. Okay. All right. So again, I am super duper sorry about all of those issues. I'm hoping that they were fixed because I didn't have any issues 6th hour. So we will meet again on Friday for our last lecture of the week, and hopefully won't have issues. If you have questions, always email me, always text me, always do what you need to do. I am here to help you. Okay. So thank you, and we will talk soon.